of 13, but there's no 14th Baktun. Above the Baktun, you have a Kalabtun, which is 400 times 20, or 8,000 years, and then it continues going until we're talking about cycles of hundreds of thousands of years. What we're going to reach on December 21st in the year 2012 is the very end of Baktun 13, at which point we move to a whole other level of existence, which is going to be a new consciousness, a new world. But that's the Maya calendar in a nutshell. Let me just say that we still don't know exactly where the 260-day calendar comes from. It may be tied in with the cycle of Venus. But one very interesting speculation, which is something that you have to think about the context, and context is everything for calendars, is that 260 days is also a fairly good approximation of the time from fertilization to birth. Okay, it's approximately 9 months. To add another dimension to this, think of the context in which Maya women were experiencing childbirth. They were living in villages where they were sharing their pheromones, and it's been documented that women who live together in close proximity for long periods of time tend to cycle together. And so in a Neolithic village, one of the things that will happen, not strictly, because we're not robots, but in general, you will find all of the women in the community cycling together, and there will be distinct periods of fertilization and birth, which are represented by perhaps this 260-day calendar.
I just wanted to thank you so much for that. That was awesome. And I just appreciate so much all the brilliant minds at Burning Man. It's like heaven to speak with you. I want to really recommend another book to people. It's called A Little Book of Coincidence. It's by this guy John Martineau, who was sort of initiated into esoteric cosmology by the crop circle phenomenon. And this book, he just created a software program where he was able to create maps, diagrams of the relationship between the Earth and different planets. Venus, I think it's 5 times in 8 years, Venus and the Earth, come as close as they come. And Venus always presents the same face to the Earth. 5, 8, 13... Fibonacci scale. I mean, that's why Venus is the planet of beauty, because it has this incredible harmonic relationship with the Earth. Okay, Steiner. You got to read Steiner. You got to read Harmony of the Creative Word. Fucking masterpiece. So beautiful. About the elemental spirits, about the gnomes, etc. Okay, that's a digression. Steiner talks about time being composed of time spirits, archangels. Each period of time is a being. The Middle Ages was a being. Renaissance, modern period. Okay? Anyway, that's all.
I was just going to introduce a dimension for discussion that I haven't heard yet, and that is to a large extent in focusing on 2012, we're appropriating knowledge that did not come from the Western tradition at all. We've been talking about Steiner and Aristotle and others, but in fact it's an indigenous native movement which ties in with some of the things that are going to change our world in 2012. That we need to be conscious of now and work together with, because it's the synthesis of West and non-West that is one of the most important things that will happen then. And among the kinds of things that bring it into the real world are the fact that there are social movements, such as Subcomandante Marcos's Zapatistas, who do everything according to the calendar. And people who've been watching the Zapatistas and discussing them have no doubt whatsoever that December 21st, 2012 is going to be a time when the Zapatistas, who have been moving, I mean, they're not so much a military or political movement as a consciousness movement, and they will use theater, they will use tricksterism, they will use all kinds of things to fuck up the world in major ways as we get closer to 2012. In addition to which, yet another movement called the Movimiento Maya, which is happening in Jaya and Guatemala among Maya groups, is also keyed in on this calendar. And so if you're not aware of what's happening in indigenous movements, we're kind of continuing in the wrong mode of thinking by sticking strictly with Western perspectives. And we need to get the indigenous perspectives in as well. Maybe you could speak to some of that. Yeah.
Right, well, that's why I keep telling people they must go now, if they can, and work with the shamans who've been holding these traditions, if they can do it. I just wanted to point out that Arguelles was recognized by 9 indigenous tribes in Mexico as the closer of the cycle. They did a ceremony for him at Teotihuacan, the Pyramid of the Sun, and they gave him this beautiful staff, incredibly well carved with all of these crystals. He is the closer of the cycle. He is the one who has taken the indigenous shamanic knowledge and updated it for the modern mind.
Okay, just quickly, sort of integrating my own scientific academic upbringing with the chaotic lessons that have been coming my way. I've been listening to this discussion and thinking that a lot of these terms are possibly predictive, which fascinates me, and I want to study more along those lines, but definitely poetic. And I guess the point I'm making, and I want to hear what you think about it, is I think that if nothing special happens in December of 2012, we shouldn't be too disappointed. And if it happens in April of 2004, we should be ready.
We're in the transition. And yeah, I mean, Arguelles says that the universe is an art project. It's God's art project. Time is art. I mean, I wrote a book about psychedelics and shamanism right here. Okay? I think that if you read the book, you'll understand that, what you're asking. Terence McKenna, shamanism. The universe is made of language. Of course, he was a writer, as I'm a writer. For a musician, the universe is made of music. It's true, though. You know, reality is storied, fabled into existence. A fantasy I have. Across America, cities, industrial wastelands, factories, warehouses, empty. Center cafes in these places, you know, raise the vibration, you know, introduce workshops, yoga, massage, you know, Detroit, Pittsburgh, you know, find the money, find the backer. Very wealthy people here at Burning Man. What are they doing with their money? Money's not going to mean anything in 10 years. We're not going to use money anymore. Arguelles thinks we're going to become telepathic. I agree with him. We're already becoming more telepathic. Well, also what Burning Man shows us is that as the individual becomes more individual, the collective becomes more collective at a higher level.
I've been doing a lot of research about going and seeing a shaman and working with ayahuasca and things like that. And what I find for myself is some things sound very touristy, and some things I don't know where to look. I was wondering if you had any suggestions or what to look out for or what to look for, positive or negative.
Kabbalah, basic virtue of the earth plane, discrimination. Okay? Discriminate. Go to the ayahuasca.com website. Use the internet. Read reports. Read what people say. I don't have the answers. Make your own judgments. Shamans are tricksters. You know, there are deeper levels of shamanism. You know, you can learn from a tacky, shitty shaman. You can learn from Carlos Castaneda, who made up, you know, a lot of bullshit. On the other hand, paradox, incredibly profound texts. They move you. You know, they show you things. You know, it's a paradox, a crop circle phenomenon, a profound teaching on the nature of reality, how to embrace paradox.
You've mentioned Steiner a few times, and I did a training, Waldorf training, and one of the things they talked about in there is that he suggests aligning the social studies curriculum around the times of civilizations and matching that up with the development of the students, such that they might learn Greek history or Renaissance or Reformation or Enlightenment period, depending on their level of development in their life, whether they're going through a rebellious stage when they're 12 or 13 or whatever. And I was wondering if you could further comment on the philosophy behind aligning, you know, these ages of civilization with the stages we go through as people, and how that ties in with 2012 and things.
I didn't know that about Steiner's educational philosophy. Anything that Steiner says should be considered very, very deeply. A lot of his ideas in the esoteric realm seem incredibly bizarre at first and impossible, and then you just sit with them. You know, you don't reject them, you don't accept them, you don't believe in them, you don't, cynically think they're garbage. Just hold them. You know, hold the space for them. They move inside you. Steiner, you know, it's very controversial. he talks about